When we were ramping up to do the Holy Babble in the first place, I solicited advice from a lot of friends, including a couple of religious ones. And it struck me that in every instance when I asked a Christian about reading the Bible, they all told me to start with Matthew. This was never followed by, and then read the rest of the New Testament in order, mind you. After that, they'd usually try to direct me to Acts and then Proverbs or Psalms or whatever. But clearly they all considered Matthew, the Bible, putting its best foot forward. And you'll never understand exactly how depressing that is until you read this fucking book.
Yeah, Christians, listen up. You guys really need to read this thing. It's nuts. If we're reading it, you guys have to read it.
Absolutely. And despite Ferris Bueller-level efforts to call in sick on this one, we're joined for our reintroduction to Jesus by my lovely wife, Lucinda. Lucinda, welcome back.
Despite all the facts to the contrary, Noah, I am happy to be here.
So why don't you go ahead and get us started?
So we start with this genealogy that traces Jesus all the way back to Abraham via every famous Jew ever.
Yes, and let's do the math. It says that there were 14 generations between Abraham and David, 14 between David and the fall of Jerusalem, and 14 between then and Jesus, which would ultimately mean that after Abe, the Jews were having kids at the average age of 76, after which they switched to having kids at 30, and then after they fucked up the temple thing, they went to 42 and settled on that.
It's reasonable.
Yeah, I guess.
So then we get, so then we get the Immaculate Conception, and just when Joseph is about to send his whore fiancée away, he dreams that God fucked her, so he lets her stay. The old softy.
Oh, and by the way, remember when the unerring creator of the universe said the kid would be named Jesus? They're like, no, we don't. Wasn't it Emmanuel in the thing? No, that's actually pronounced Jesus.
Believe it or not.
You wouldn't think so. It's Jesus.
All right, enter the three wise men running around telling everybody about the new mini Jew king.
Yeah, not sure how they kept that wise moniker when it didn't take Herod long to convince him that he was just looking for Jesus so he could say hi.
Which, of course, he wasn't.
No.
Yeah. Tell him I said hi. No. That sounds suspicious. Stupid. Be cool. Tell him I said was
Then we
Jesus
enter.
was
Then we enter into this weird game of whack-a-Jesus that comes about because of all the prophets saying that the Messiah would be from a different place.
Right, yeah.
So he goes from Bethlehem to Egypt to Israel to Galilee.
Yeah, it comes out of all of them.
ridiculous. It felt like they're making a superhero sequel, and they just completely ignored the original comic book. A bunch of Jewish fanboys on the production team started complaining and awkwardly plaster over all the stuff they were getting wrong.
And then Herod kills a bunch of babies, a fact that was curiously left out of all the non-New Testament accounts of history, even by historians going out of their way to demonize Herod. And then John the locust-munching Baptist shows up to vaguely fulfill one of Isaiah's epileptic bouts of glossolalia.
But first, John is starstruck like Kim Jong-un meeting James Franco. Son of God. Don't say anything stupid. You should baptize me, right? Right? Because you're... I'm sorry, that sounded desperate. I'm such an idiot. Jesus.
And then Jesus wanders off into the desert to live off of nothing but cactuses and mushrooms for 40 days and nights, which doesn't sound...
And at the end, the devil shows up to fuck with him, and he's all like, if you were really the Son of God, you could just eat rocks and jump off of buildings and shit. And Jesus is like, yeah, I can do all that stuff. I just don't feel like doing it right now. I mean, but if I felt like it, I could.
Yeah, and then he hears that John the Baptist has been arrested, so Jesus heroically ran and hid like a little bitch.
Right? And then we get all the disciple hunting and people healing that we got already in Mark.
Yeah, this is the part when he takes his miracle mineral solution down to Galilee and cures all the acne by burning it off with bleach.
Apparently, yes, exactly.
Then we get the infamous Sermon on the Mount.
Right, and as widely cited as this thing is, the whole opening is all about how awesome it is to be poor, disaffected, and shit on by the state. Isn't it great, guys?
And just for the record, by the way, Jesus says you become blessed when people insult you. Yet, we provide this public blessing service to Christians on a weekly basis, and they never appreciate it at all. Punching heaven tickets for you idiots. I learned to like it.
And then he reminds everybody that bland salt sucks, and all the slave beating, rape victim purchasing, and slut stoning from the old book definitely still applies.
Still the rules.
Yeah.
Wait, and don't forget, wanting to fuck somebody is the same as fucking them. So you might as well just fuck them.
And then
Just do it.
chop your penis off and your eye.
Right, yeah, exactly. That's where we're going now. We get the self-mutilation advice once more.
Right. Yeah, if you cut off your hands, rip out your eyeballs, and never do anything, you're almost guaranteed to find heaven after your shitty, blind, handless life in a ditch.
Yeah,
So,
the best thing that you can do. And then he
And to be
reminds
perfect.
everybody not to act like a Christian about shit, not to save for retirement, not to plant food, and not to wear clothes.
Alrighty.
He also said, definitely don't turn into a self-righteous, preachy asshole.
I already said
If you wanna-
it said not to act like a Christian about shit.
Yeah, but if you want to pray to me and my dad, just go to your room and do it quietly, and then shut the fuck up about it when you're around other people.
Yeah.
So it's pretty
Exactly.
good stuff from Jesus there. So, what happened? Did you guys even read the book like I was saying? It's right there.
Don't believe they did.
So.
And then he tries to give good advice about not being a judgmental dick, but he fucks it all up with this analogy about a guy with a log stuck in his eye. Was that like a thing that happened back in the day? People would get planks and logs and
An
shit
entire
caught in their
plank?
How the fuck do you
eyes?
get
What?
a log in your eye?
Right?
I don't understand. Also, don't feed your kids rocks or snakes.
Mhm.
Important advice straight from JC there, you guys.
And he also warns against, shepherds making wild new religious claims. Unless, of course, they're carrying a perfectly polished apple like this one right here.
Right, yeah, exactly. Now, to be fair, the Sermon on the Mount contains some pretty decent shit, but basically you've got 6 bumper stickers worth of wisdom just stuffed along
Strong.
in there somewhere.
Right. Then we get the leper healing, fever lowering, demon pig massacring montage
We
of
need
the
a
Bible.
montage.
Ridiculous.
If I wasn't really the Son of God, would I blow this leper with AIDS right here? That would be crazy otherwise, right? Some guy's like, I don't know, maybe the leper's not the Son of God, and he would, clearly. We got the AIDS and the leprosy. And Jesus says, okay, fine. But would I be able to murder all 2,000 of those pigs right there? And the guy's like, well, probably not, but just kill a few of them, or do a trick without murdering.
Right,
Do
right.
any
With
other
nothing
trick.
else
Come
to
on.
die.
Do
And in
that.
chapter 10, we learn that Jesus used the term good news much in the same way that Professor Farnsworth does. He splits his disciples up and he says, go out there and cast out demons and shit. No, by the way, you're going to be whipped and tortured and a lot.
All right, so we got our team together, right? Wait. What's with the shifty-looking ginger over there? Who brought that guy? He's the new 12? Did we get a background check on it? Why is he sweating like Patrick Ewing over there? Well, I don't have time for this. If he's a fucking narc, it's on you guys. You fix this.
And apparently he pioneered Ken Ham's There's a Book defense, because when they asked him for a sign, he said, here's a book about a guy living in a well for 3 days. If that's not miraculous, I don't know what is. Come on, guys.
Hold on, wait. I do know what is. If you thought that whale was exciting, wait until you watch me sit in a ditch for 3 days. Wait until you see this. I'm like, Dave, then I'm going to levitate slightly from a weird angle, and you're not going to know how I... By the way, check your wallet. 9 of spades. Nailed
Oh,
it.
shit. And then we get a bunch of, did you ever notice how a leaf is like a cloud bullshit about how bad people are the weeds that Satan planted and then all the good people, and God's too impotent to whip up some Roundup or something, so he's just going to toss the weed people into hell after the harvest, and that's his plan.
That all happened
Yeah,
in
and
your
then
book. You haven't read.
and then we get the bit where they behead John the Baptist, and Jesus is so distraught that he retreats into his fortress of solitude.
Yeah. And then he walks on water, and all the disciples who have watched him now cure blindness with a touch and drag an arm with his jizz and feed
That was one of my
5,000
favorite
people
parts.
with a butt piece of a loaf of bread and some cat food. Now that he's walked on water, they're finally convinced that he's truly the Son of God.
Make him levitate an X-Wing!
Yeah, right?
Right, exactly.
Yoda could kick Jesus' ass.
And again, Jesus very clearly puts the nickel down on the washing your hands before you eat can never lead to a negative health outcome declaration.
Yeah, he was very
Yeah.
clear about that. And then Jesus is a complete dick to a woman with a dead daughter. Like, that was, man, she asked him to help, but apparently she's not Jewish enough because he said, quote, it's not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs, end quote.
Well,
However,
but when she offers to lick up his crumbs, if you know what I mean, he begrudgingly saves her little kid.
Yeah, like a dick, though. He's definitely a dick about it.
everybody remember me doing this one time for a non-Jew Christian.
If you lick my
Everybody
balls.
remember that. Everybody gets one.
And then Jesus asks all his disciples who he is, and Simon Peter was the first to the buzzer,
They got Jews.
and he said, who is the Messiah? So he gets to be Pope and tell God what to do. Obviously.
Then he explains the next big illusion. He's going to hand himself over to the bad guys, get tortured, killed, and then resurrected. And Peter gets a little pissed. Simon Peter, whatever his name is. Dude, that's clearly not going to work. That's just you dying. Do you have any idea how complicated the rewrites are going to be on that? Can't you just do the fish thing again with different numbers? People love that one. That's your thing now. Do the fish.
They love it when you do the fish.
Then Jesus goes on this long rant about how we're all God's slaves, and he's a merciful slave owner, so we shouldn't get all bitchy about it.
Yeah.
Come on.
And while we're on the subject for 14 verses, while we're talking about slavery, you think Jesus could toss out a quick, oh, by the way, stop doing that, the slave thing. But he had important mustard seed analogies in mind, so he couldn't...
Fucking
He also
analogies.
suggested cutting off several more limbs and organs if they're getting in the way at this point, just to remind you that that's an option. And it's really because, they just get seared right off when you get to hell anyway. So, or you go to heaven, where it's fun to be a blind, lifeless torso with stumps.
It's only a flesh wound, after all. 'Tis but a scratch.
And this is also where we learn why being poor and homeless is actually a great deal. For rich people to go to heaven, he's making them give away mansions and shitloads of gold. But for you poor bastards, just throw away that huge plastic bag of cans and those 7 wool hats and you're in. How easy is that? Tell me, you're really
Quite
attached to that
fair.
stuff? The stupid cart? Get rid of the stupid cart with the old boombox.
And I thought this was interesting that Jesus actually in chapter 20 points out the whole be a terrible murderer all your life and then convert on your deathbed loophole and then endorses it.
Right.
Goes
Right.
way out of his way to say, no, that's supposed to happen.
You don't want to
Yeah.
tell people about that one.
Yeah, but then all of his disciples go all Grand Theft Donkey on his
Right.
ass.
Yeah.
Then the Pharisees show up and try to defeat Jesus with theological bar trivia.
Yeah, they try to trap him. They start by quizzing him on the progressive income tax structure, and it eventually degrades to gonna get crucified. Says what? I get. You want me to say what? I'm not stupid.
Then
Very
we get
clear.
then we get the apocalypse warning where Jesus says it's gonna suck. There'll be wars and famines and Nicolas Cage movies. Don't sweat it. It's all
Oh,
right.
it'll be great. It'll be
Okay.
great. Again, very clearly telling his disciples that this would happen in their lifetime, by the way.
What is wrong with you? You're writing the book afterwards, aren't
right.
you? That's your whole trick. How are you getting stuff wrong? You just
Exactly.
write it.
Come on,
Right.
as it
Already
happens.
had
Switch it. You
happened.
switch on stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And of course, we learn that much like a harem of virgins competing for one penis, we should always keep a jar of lube with us at all times because Jesus could be coming any minute.
Yep.
Also in your book. You
Yeah, it is. Then we get the Last Supper where he turns all of the apostles into Jesus vampires with a cup of his blood.
Yeah, that's weird.
And Judas says, yeah, does that cannibal bread have gluten? I can't have any gluten. But you guys go ahead. I'm just going to go walk away for a few hours as I whistle naturally. I definitely won't be back with cops to arrest you. Don't worry.
Yeah, I'm doing something else entirely.
So they arrest Jesus, and after a few false starts, they eventually convict him of talking shit about being better at Minecraft than them or some shit like that. Yeah.
temple in 3 days, huh? Motherfucker, you can't do that.
Yeah.
So then Pontius Pilate takes Jesus to the crowd and he says, what do you think, Jews? Should we kill this dude or that murderer guy over there? They all say, kill Jesus. But
Kill the
they're
really nice guy, not the murderer.
both named Jesus, of course, but the other Jesus, the one that gets crucified, and Pilate says he's like, you sure that you want to do that because that might mean generations of getting pogromed and holocausted and shit. And they're like, yeah, we don't give a fuck. As long as we get to dress him up and hit him on the head, before you crucify him, we're good with
That's
the
great.
pogroming and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Yeah, the Jew hate bits come on strong by the end of this one.
Yeah,
too. It's
no
pretty bad.
kidding. And then we get the crucifixion. Everybody calls Jesus a dick. Then he dies, and zombies fill the city.
Zombies.
That also happens in your book that you haven't read. Zombies who are awakened by an earthquake just come wandering into the fucking city.
And appear to some people.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, just
Right.
some
Other
of it.
people are hiding from the fucking zombies.
Then Joseph of Arimathea shows up and buys Jesus' corpse. But Pilate put some guards around it just in case a zombie thing is still going around.
Yeah,
there
you
might be
never
one
know.
or two
You
left.
never know.
Right. So the
slow.
only time his body wasn't accounted for was that first night when he got buried right next to his harem in SEAL Team 6.
Yeah.
Nothing suspicious other than that.
No.
And then they very expressly say, and I know it looks like Jesus' disciples just took his body, but that's definitely not what happened.
Absolutely not.
No.
Even though that's exactly what it looks like
It's-
just happened, that's not
Yeah, exactly.
nothing.
Don't
like
even
what
look at that
just happened.
false bottom. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Just go back in the
hinges
front.
are
Go
just
back in the
natural.
The
front.
mirrors.
The hinges just were there when we got here.
Where did the
Now,
lighter fluid come from?
If anybody happened to maybe notice a contradiction or two between this one and the entire rest of the book, don't be surprised by that. According to friend of the show Steve Wells of Skeptics Annotated Bible fame, Matthew contains 139 contradictions, more than any other single book of the Bible.
Insane. Yeah.
So,
not
comforted with the knowledge that we've now read 17 of the 20 longest books of the Bible, we'll stick that on the shelf for a couple of weeks. We'll be back with Luke in episode 109. Between now and then, Heath, Lucinda, read something that doesn't suck. You've earned it.
My eyeballs are
Hope
still
Luke's the
burning.
exact same story. That'll be fun,
Yeah. That will be fun.
but longer. Hopefully it'll be longer in the same story. The exact same story, but way longer. That'd be
Yeah,
great.
Oh,
I hope that's what it is. We'll
with all
find
the
out.
same words and everything.